Do Christian filmmakers see storytelling for the screen differently? To answer that question, we have to first define what a Christian filmmaker is. I met my biological father when I was 19. He was a devout Christian that built houses for a living, but I never heard him refer to himself as a Christian builder. Like a good film, he preferred to show the evidence of his faith rather than tell it. His faith was visible in the way that he conducted business. He was kind, gentle, honest, and fair. In addition, he also took the time to learn the art of carpentry and construction so that he would have the skills necessary to build a quality home. His faith, coupled with top-notch craftsmanship, resulted in the construction of hundreds of beautifully built homes in Kansas. He did his work as unto the Lord, and as a result, he was regarded as one of the best home builders in the county. The same is true for any creative endeavor that a follower of Christ might undertake, including the art of film. A Christian filmmaker will use the medium to tell stories that champion good, but that alone is not a recipe for a great movie, any more than integrity alone is a recipe for building a great house. There are also films that have been directed by men and women that do not identify as Christian, yet their films still contain Christian themes. C.S. Lewis spoke of spiritual laws that exist in the universe that are generally accepted by all cultures. These laws include things like bravery, patriotism, faithfulness, etc. In Mere Christianity, he wrote, "If anyone will take the trouble to compare the moral teachings of, say, the ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, Hindus, Chinese, Greeks, and Romans, what will really strike him will be how very like they are to each other and to our own." Lewis argued that God, as creator, set these laws in place, just as assuredly as the law of gravity and other natural laws. We see this acceptance of the definitions of good and evil even in the secular films like The Green Mile. The film was based on the novel by Stephen King. Though King does not identify as a Christian, there are elements within the story that have Christian overtones, especially in the character of John Coffey. Even a casual viewing of the film will reveal Christ-like qualities that cannot be ignored. The first thing we notice about Coffey is the enormity of his size and strength, yet beneath his powerful exterior is a gentle and kind disposition. Coffey has been convicted for the rape and murder of 2 young girls, but the protagonist, Paul Edgecombe, almost instantly doubts the conviction. As the story develops, the audience discovers that Coffey is indeed innocent. The idea of a man being sent to his execution for a crime he did not commit draws the mind toward the sacrifice of Christ. Speaking about the coming execution of Christ, the prophet Isaiah wrote, "He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth." Like Christ, John Coffey never refuted the false charges of which he was accused. Beyond this, John had multiple opportunities to use his strength and size to escape the coming execution. This also resonates with the arrest and execution of Christ. When Jesus was arrested, Peter took his sword and struck the servant of the high priest in an attempt to protect the Lord from his arrest. Jesus rebuked Peter's actions and declared, "Do you think that I cannot pray now to my Father, and he will provide me with more than 12 legions of angels?" Jesus, who was God incarnate, had all power to preserve his life, but chose to submit to a shameful execution on behalf of the human race. This is the ultimate example of humility. The depiction of John Coffey, though not a perfect reflection of Christ, does have similarities. As humans, according to Lewis's theory about natural law, we recognize the goodness of John Coffey, which ultimately points to the goodness of Christ. The next Christ-like quality we see in John Coffey is his supernatural ability to heal. In the film, there are 7 major miracles that he performs: the healing of Edgecombe's bladder infection, the resurrection of the dead mouse, the healing of the warden's wife, the extended life of the mouse and the extended life of Edgecombe, the supernatural revelation of the heart of Percy and Wild Bill, and the transfer of knowledge to Edgecombe that Billy was the true murderer of the young girls. In the Gospels, we see all of these supernatural abilities in one way or another present in the person of Christ. The final Christ-like quality that we see in Coffey is his prerogative to execute judgment on wickedness. After absorbing the brain tumor that was in the warden's wife, Coffey retains the sickness until he returns to the prison cell. In previous miracles, he immediately released the adverse elements in the form of a cloud from his mouth. The guards believe that Coffey has retained the tumor that he might die in his sleep as opposed to facing the electric chair. However, when they return to the prison, Coffey grabs Percy and releases a cloud of molecules into Percy's mouth. When Coffey lets him go, Percy stumbles down the corridor and turns to look at Wild Bill. They stare at each other for a moment as a single tear rolls down Percy's face. Percy then pulls his sidearm and unloads his pistol on Billy, killing him instantly. Coffey then supernaturally reveals to Edgecombe that both men were evil and had to be punished. Billy dies for the murder of the 2 girls, and Percy spends the rest of his days in a mental institution. Some could argue that Jesus never punished evil during his time on the earth. This is true, but the New Testament provides multiple passages that speak to Christ's prophetic pronouncements of judgment on evil. In Matthew 23, Jesus wept over Jerusalem and the destruction that the city would face under the Roman general Titus in 70 AD. In Luke 19, Jesus told a parable about the demise of those who did not want him to be king over them. The entire book of Revelation is a prophetic glimpse at the return of Christ and the final outcome of those who reject him. Though Jesus never executed judgment on wickedness during his earthly ministry, he spoke openly about the certainty of judgment on multiple occasions. It is truly astounding that Stephen King, a non-Christian, portrayed these spiritual truths with such artistic clarity in The Green Mile. What does that say about the state of Christian film in America today? If C.S. Lewis's explanation of natural law is correct, should not Christian films have the highest standards when it comes to creativity, being in direct relationship with the God of creation? Josh Tribby, in his review of God's Not Dead, stated that one of the problems with Christian films is the fact that they appear to begin as a sermon around which a story is written. This form of writing results in characters that are not fully developed, subplots that do not support the overall story. Tribby also points out that many Christian films today spoon-feed information to the audience, rather than giving their mind something to wrestle with. This is the opposite of how Jesus would speak to his audience, often answering a question with a question, and making the audience dig for the answer. Many Christian films tell the audience what to feel about the story, rather than inviting them in to be immersed in the world and come to their own conclusions. I do believe this is a relatively new paradigm. If one looks at the various art forms throughout history, it is clear that many great men and women have used their creative talents to create outstanding Christian art. Consider the works of Bach, Michelangelo, or in recent years, Dorothy Love Coates or Tarkovsky. These men and women created artwork that the secular world at the time and still today celebrate for its high standard of creativity. We live in a time when the world desperately needs the voice of the church to speak clearly in the various art forms. Before Jesus' crucifixion, he prayed for his disciples, "I do not pray that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one." He did not want the church to isolate itself from the rest of the population and become a community to itself. Sadly, in some ways, Christian film has become that. If we are to honor Christ in film, we must give more attention to the artistic development of movies that we produce. No doubt there is a portion of the population that will support any film that is labeled Christian. This may be the hardest obstacle to overcome as Christian filmmakers. But if our faith is sincere, we will reject the option for easy financial success in favor of great storytelling that truly honors Christ.